to Sweets, Treats, and Eats, the Mini Clinic. I'm Howie Morgasen. On this episode, we're going to be talking about a very popular food that has been around for years. Actually, I saw a news story last week that they found in ancient Egypt, in cave art, a plate with these on it. And what I'm talking about is meatballs. So meatballs have been around for a long time. The great thing about meatballs is that you can be very creative. You can use almost any kind of protein that you want, and we'll show you some of those in the 2 episodes that we're going to dedicate to meatballs. And then you can add in vegetables, you can add in breadcrumbs, and you can add in cheese. So there's lots of different things you can do. What I'm going to do first on this episode is a turkey meatball. Since everybody is health conscious and turkey is a very healthy protein, we figured that we would make some turkey meatballs. And it's a very basic recipe. It's very easy to do. So why don't we get started? So we have all the ingredients we need here. We have breadcrumbs, and we have turkey, ground turkey, parsley, ricotta cheese, an egg, some milk, some Parmesan cheese, oregano, garlic, black pepper, and salt. So why don't we get started? So I'm going to start out with these fresh breadcrumbs, and the recipe calls for it. You don't have to. If you can't make them, you can certainly use the canned breadcrumbs. They're certainly okay. To make this, you take 4 slices of bread, and I have a mini prep, which is a small food processor. And you tear up the pieces, you put them in there, and you just let it go, and then you get these great breadcrumbs. This is from a wheat bread. So I'm going to put those in the bowl here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the milk, which I have here. I'm going to add that to it. And then I'm going to mix it, because that sort of softens the breadcrumbs and gets it ready for everything else that's going in. And now the rest of the ingredients. So I have some parsley, and I have some Parmesan cheese. I have a little oregano, some garlic, some black pepper, and some salt. And I'll mix that up a little bit to get that all incorporated nicely. And then we will bring our ricotta cheese, which we have right here. We'll put that in. That brings moisture and also some cheese flavor to it. So we're gonna mix that in as well. It's looking great. We'll take our egg and we'll put that in. And then we're gonna mix that all together. And now we're gonna take the star of our show, which is our turkey, and we're gonna put our turkey into there. And we're going to mix it up, and I'm going to continue mixing it. And when we come back, I'm going to show you how we make the meatballs. So stay with us. As you can see, I've been stirring this mixture up, and it's pretty well combined. And I think now we're ready to make some meatballs. So I think that's what we're going to do. So I have here a scooper, or they call it a disher. This is not a full-size scoop, but it's about 1/2 to 3/4 of it. My pan over here, I have put 2 oils. The recipe calls for both olive oil and canola oil. So I put those on, and you can see that I have oiled my pan. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a scoop of this, and I'm going to take it, and I'm just going to gently round it out and then put it on the pan like that. And okay, using the scoop makes the meatballs pretty much the same size, so it's a good idea. You know, if you have a good eye, you can do it freehand. That's up to you. And so I'm gonna keep making some meatballs here. This recipe is supposed to make about a dozen of them, so I'll come back when we have a tray full of it, and we'll talk about what comes next. So stay tuned. All right, so as you can see, I have scooped out the meatballs, and actually I went to a little bit larger scoop because I found that I could make them a little bigger and still have enough meat left to work with. And I actually got 15 out of it instead of 12, which the recipe says, but that's all, dependent on what size scoop you're using, how big you make the meatballs. So I got 15 decent sized meatballs, and so I'm going to put these in the oven, a preheated 400-degree oven for about 15 minutes, and then you take it out. I'm going to turn them over. The recipe doesn't mention anything about it, but I'm going to turn them over because they'll be kind of golden, on the bottom side. And then back in the oven, reduce the oven to 325 and another 15 minutes, and then we'll be back to taste our turkey meatballs. So now here we have it. You can see these delicious turkey meatballs, and the golden brown is part of it, and that means that there's a lot of flavor in them. So I have one over here, and let's give it a taste and see what we came up with. Looks really good, so let's try it. Unlike turkey meatballs that I've made in the past, this is moist. This is really good. So I hope you try the recipe. So coming up next, we'll talk about and make some traditional meatballs, part of the Italian Sunday supper for years. So stay with us. All right, we just finished those awesome turkey meatballs, and I hope you give them a try. But now we're on to the traditional meatball. And this is made popular in every Italian household across the country for something called Sunday supper, where there's a big pot of sauce or gravy on the stove, and there's all kinds of meats, including meatballs, that are part of it. So we're gonna do the traditional meatball. And even the traditional meatball has some variations in it. So it calls for pork and beef, but we're actually using pork, beef, and veal. In the supermarket, it's called the meatloaf mix, but it's those three different meats, and it adds just a variation in texture and taste. So we're going to use those in there. So we're going to put those in our bowl like that. And now we're going to start adding the ingredients in. So we have some Parmesan cheese. I'm going to put that in. We have some breadcrumbs. We'll put those in. Those are seasoned breadcrumbs. We have some parsley. We'll put that in. We have some eggs, and we'll add those. And then our spices. So we have some black pepper. We have some garlic. And we have some salt. And now what we're going to do is we're going to mix this up and get it all together, and I'm going to continue working on this, and then when we come back, we're going to make some meatballs. So make sure you stay with us. All right, so as you can see, we have our traditional meatball mix here, and just a couple of things. When I was mixing the meatball mix, I was using my hands, so make sure clean hands. I always have clean hands when I do these episodes because I'm handling food and other people are going to eat it, so I want to be respectful of that. So either clean hands or gloves, either one is fine. I usually use my hands, but I wash them constantly so to keep them clean. So we have our meatball mix, we have our scooper again, and now what we're going to do is a little bit about the cooking for these meatballs. There's several different ways we can do it. The recipe that I'm using actually says to cook the meatballs in the oven for some period of time and then transfer it to the pot of tomato sauce. My wife's family, when they cook the meatballs, traditional, they make the meatballs and they put them right into the hot tomato sauce and it cooks in there. The difference being when you cook it just in the tomato sauce, it's a different texture. It's much softer. So that's the way we're going to do it, but you can do it any way that you want. So let's get started with this. So we're going to grab a scoop of our meatball mix, and we're just going to make it round like we did with the turkey ones. Put it on our plate here. Let's grab another scoop, and do it. So these are decent sized meatballs. There could be bigger ones. There are several smaller sizes, and some of the other recipes we do with meatballs are going to have small meatballs in it, so you'll see that. But it's just a question of how you want them to be, what size you want them to be, so you can experiment with different sizes. So I'm going to continue making meatballs here, and then when we come back, I'm going to show you how we put them up to cook. So stay with us. So as you can see, we have these plate of meatballs here, and we're ready to work with them. And we have our sauce over here, and this is a homemade sauce that's bubbling away. My wife made this, but you can substitute your favorite jar sauce for it. That would be perfect. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the meatballs and we're going to lower them in. You don't want to plop them in because that would make a mess. So we're going to take the meatballs, put them into the sauce, spread them out. And so I'll keep putting the meatballs in, and when they are cooked, which is probably about 45 minutes to an hour, we will then try them. So stay with us. All right, we're just peeking in on the meatballs. They have been cooking for some time, and you can see they look great. So make sure you stay with us, and we're going to taste some. I don't know about you, but here is one great bowl of meatballs. So check that out. And that is made in the sauce purely. We didn't do it in the oven, in the fry pan. We put it in. All it needs is a big bowl of pasta, a loaf of crusty bread, and you would be all set. So let's see if I can sort of get in here and sort of take a look. It looks great. So let me sort of take a piece here and try it. Oh, this is wonderful. You're gonna have to try this recipe. Grandma would be proud of these meatballs. So stay with us because more meatball magic is coming up. All right, so we've made two really good meatballs so far. We made a turkey meatball and we made a traditional Italian meatball. Now we're gonna make a non-traditional meatball, which is a buffalo chicken meatball. Pretty cool. So typically when you have wings, you have carrot sticks and celery with it. For the meatball, we're gonna take the veggies, we're gonna put them in the food processor, and what we're going to come up with is a fine ground mixture. So there's the carrots. I have a red pepper here, so I'll put that in. I have some onions that'll join the show. And then I have some garlic, because you can't do it without garlic. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the food processor, I'm going to put it in, and I'm going to set it going. And you want to do it in spurts because what you're probably going to have to do, which I can see here, is you're going to have to take the cover off and make sure that the bigger pieces get pushed down like that. Put it back on, do it some more. Okay, so I'm going to keep doing this, and when we have our mixture, we'll join you at the stove. As you can see, the veggie mix is out of the food processor, and I put it in a skillet, and I put a little heat over it. I did add a little olive oil in it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some heat, and what we want to do is draw more liquid, out of it. This also gives us a chance to put some more spices in it to add flavor. So we're going to put a little paprika in it. We're going to put a little bit of onion powder in it. We're going to put a little garlic powder in it. And then this is something that I haven't worked with before, but it's part of the recipe. This is a bouillon paste. And so what it says, the recipe calls for a tablespoon of the bouillon paste. So I'll put that in there like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix this all around to make sure everything gets mixed in. And we're going to let this go for a little bit. And when that's done, we'll meet you back at the table and we'll continue the recipe. So stay with us. All right, we're back on the stove and you can see our veggies are ready to go. And the star of the show will be the ground chicken that we have here. And so let's start assembling the meatball mix. So we'll start with the veggie mix that we have. We're going to put in some onion powder, some paprika, some garlic powder, some black pepper, and some Frank's hot sauce, because wings wouldn't be the same without hot sauce. Then I have some eggs. And last but not least, the panko breadcrumbs. All right, so I'm gonna start and mix all this together. And when you're mixing it, what you wanna be careful is that you don't over mix it. So one of the things with meatballs is that you just mix it till you get everything together. So I'm gonna continue mixing this, and then when we come back, I'm gonna show you how to put the meatballs on the tray. So stay with us. All right, so as you can see, that's our chicken meatball mix ready to go. As I was finishing the mixing, I did use my hands for the end of it. So that's an important note. Clean hands. I am constantly washing my hands as we film these episodes. It's very important that you have clean hands because you are preparing food that others are going to eat, family, friends, and so forth. You're also handling raw meat, which it's important to make sure that your hands are clean. So, clean hands. Now, we have a scoop here, or a disher, as they call it. And what we're gonna do is and you'll notice that this is a small scoop because these are bite size. After we finish garnishing them with some hot sauce and with some ranch dressing and blue cheese crumbles, you're gonna wanna pick them up with a toothpick and just eat them. So we're making them that size, so you can do that. So I have my small scoop here. I'm going to take that and I'm just gonna round it off a little, and then I'm gonna place it on my tray. So I'm gonna keep doing this here. Round them off. And you wanna give them a little space in between them. And I'm also putting them on a parchment paper tray. So parchment paper is good for non-stick. So I'm gonna keep going here, and what I'm gonna do after I fill the tray is that this is gonna go into a 400-degree oven. I have the convection fan on, and it goes for 20 to 30 minutes or until they are golden brown. And then we'll come back when they're done and we'll show you how to garnish them. So stay with us. Okay, so you can see that our meatballs are out of the oven. We let them cool a little bit and they came out great. So now it's time to sauce the meatballs. So we made a wing sauce. It's very simple. It has a stick of butter, a cup of Frank's Red Hot, and a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pour some of the sauce onto the meatballs. Now, in the restaurants, what they do is they sort of move the bowl around. I have this nice white shirt on, so I'm not going to get too vigorous with it, but I will see. You can see by doing this, it covers, the meatballs with the hot sauce, and you want to make sure they get covered. So that looks pretty good. I do have a spoon, so I can just sort of make sure that they're all covered nicely with that great wing sauce mixture I made. So that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is I'll move the meatballs over here. I will grab a serving platter, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to position the meatballs on the serving platter. And when we come back, I'm going to show you how to dress these up like wings. So stay with us. All right, so as you can see, we have dressed the meatballs in the wing sauce, and that looks great. It smells wonderful. So let's garnish it. And so we're going to start out by putting a little parsley over the top. So we want to make it look as good as it tastes. So we're going to put parsley in it, spread it around. Okay, that looks good. Okay, and then I have some ranch dressing, some low-cal ranch dressing. I made it with sour cream, Greek yogurt, and the packet of ranch dressing, the dried powdered version of it. So I put that all together, a little bit of vinegar, and a little bit of water to make it the right consistency. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to sort of drip it, you know, all across, you know. And so if you have wings, you sort of have the dressing that you can either dip the wing in or the celery and the carrots. So that looks pretty good. Maybe just a little more. Okay, and then if you like more, you can put it on. And then we're going to put some blue cheese crumbles across it as well, because, you know, you have either the blue cheese dressing, you know, that goes with it, and there's a debate of whether it's a blue cheese dressing or ranch. So what we did is we used the ranch dressing, and then we're putting the blue cheese crumbles sort of over the top, you know. And then the last thing we do is we have some chives, so we're just going to sprinkle those over it as well, because that puts sort of an oniony taste over the top. So there we have it, and that looks great. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean my hands off here, and then why don't we taste it, you know, to see how we're doing. So let's pick one that looks good. I think I like this one right here. Now remember, the whole idea of doing this is to make it bite-sized. So people should be able to, you know, as a cocktail or as an appetizer, should be able to go over to the tray with a toothpick and just grab one and take it. It tastes just like a chicken wing in a meatball. So you really, really need to try this. Not that difficult to make. You can make it the morning of, so you should try it. So that's it. We've done our first episode mini clinic on meatballs. So we did turkey, we did traditional Italian meatballs, and now we've done this buffalo chicken meatball. I hope you try them. We're going to do another episode on meatballs, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And we will see you next time on Sweets, Treats, and Eats.